Everybody, on this video I'm going to share with you what I have found to be the really simple and almost only insight that you ever really need to know about how your childhood has really affected your mental health and how you can use it to start improving it right away. If you don't know who I am, my name's Hicks. I'm a mental health coach. I help people overcome depression and anxiety, usually within about 2 to 3 months. I was suicidal myself before, and I want you to be able to live a life without anxiety and depression running it, because it is possible if you do the right things. So I want to make this video because there's so much talk about childhood in the mental health industry. The predominant methods used in the mental health industry, particularly like mainstream therapy, group therapy, stuff like that, so much of it revolves around childhood. And I knew that childhood must have had some type of a role, but I was never really convinced that the best way to help improve people's mental health was to just constantly rehash and talk about every little negative thing that happened in childhood. And I found that that's just not, that focus doesn't really help, when all we do is go back through every painful thing that ever happened in your childhood and make the entire identity of who you are today revolve around, this one event that happened in the past. That very often is not the truth. That's not, the most helpful thing. And it causes us to focus overly on the past, get overly sad, depressed, or upset about the past, overly define ourselves in the present based off of what happened to us in the past, which makes us feel disempowered and without choices. And I didn't like that approach. And so one of my mentors taught me to ask a particular question that I found is very powerful for clients. And in fact, this one question usually results in me asking this one question usually results in a client having some kind of like tears of relief once they actually, answer it properly. So the question is, growing up, whose love did you crave more, your mother's or your father's? And for most people, you probably loved both your mother and your father. Not everybody loves both their mother and their father. But, as a child, for most people, they did love their mother and their father. And this is not who loved you more. It's not who did you receive love more often from. It's whose love did you crave more, right? Your mother's or your father's. And I should add also that in a small minority of people, it was not a parent figure or a biological parent. It might have been a step parent. So for me, it was my stepfather, for example. Or it could have been a grandparent or something if you were raised by someone different, something of that nature, right? But just go with whoever comes to mind. Okay, and then the next question is, who did you have to be for that person? So let's assume it's your mother. Who did you have to be for your mother in order to get her love and her attention, right? Who did you believe you had to be, at least? Right? And now chances are you're going to answer this question in a couple of different ways. So the first way, these are what we call archetypes. So the one type of archetype that there's like the people pleaser one. So you might answer and say, well, I could never disobey my mother. I could never upset her. I had to do what she wanted all the time. I could never have my own voice. I had to, figure out what she was feeling, and I had to revolve my behaviors around that. The second archetype is what we call the caretaker. This occurs especially if you had like a parent who maybe had a sickness or an illness, or, they were feeling broken all of the time, and you as the child took care of the parent, and the parent, kept saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much for taking care of me, and you felt rewarded for that. So that's the caretaker. The third is the perfectionist. So, maybe who you had to be for your mother is you had to look a certain way and be a certain way and talk a certain way, and you had to be mindful of every little constant thing, and you felt like you were constantly being scrutinized over and over and over by the parent. So you yourself had to scrutinize yourself. That'd be the perfectionist. The fourth one is the achiever, and this was the one that I kind of identified with growing up, where you think that you have to, make a certain amount of money, or you have to have a certain amount of fame, or you have to, have the gold stars or the awards, or you have to be outstanding, you have to be recognized, in some way. So that's a common one. the pleaser, the caretaker, the perfectionist, the achiever. There's a less common one, which is the comedian, right? So some people who are constantly trying to make everybody laugh and be the star of the show, right? That type of thing. Those are kind of the big ones. And then there are all sorts of little variations of that, right? So it could have been that you had to be quiet. Oh, another one I should say too is like the good little girl or the good little boy, right? Where you couldn't have your own voice, you couldn't do what you wanted, you couldn't take risks, right? Things of that nature. So if you can figure out who you had to be for the parent you loved, that you craved love from the most, chances are a big source of why you might be in pain as an adult emotionally right now is you're still trying, maybe even obsessing over trying to fulfill those wishes that your parent had on you before. And by the way, sometimes it's not even the parent actually had that wish for you, it's just that you interpreted the signals from your parent that that's who you had to be, right? So we all tend to carry around a story about who we think we have to be. And sometimes that story becomes a story that when we try to fulfill that story, it feels like we are playing a part in a play that does not match up with our character, with who we really are. And the fastest way to have bad mental health is to be living a life where you are living it in misalignment with who you really are, right? The fastest way to be miserable is live a life other than who you really are at your core. And that's why you might be feeling either anxious or depressed or whatever, is you might be trying to still be perfect or to please everybody or to take care of everybody or to achieve everything or to make everybody laugh. Right? And you may not have incorporated other parts of yourself. And think about it this way, right? How can you feel more at peace? How can you feel more whole if you are discrediting or disowning a whole section of your personality because you think that you're going to be punished if you engage in that type of personality? And that's where a lot of people have problems. It's because as children, we're so susceptible to what we believe is painful or pleasurable based off of whether we get love from the people we crave it from or not. So when we engage in a personality trait and it's met with punishment or we feel like somebody takes love away from us, we're highly susceptible to that. And so we learn a lesson and we go, okay, great, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then as an adult, it becomes hard to go and do that because we still feel we're going to get punished in some way. But of course, we're not. So you need to reclaim, well, I'm not going to tell you what you need to do, but I'll just tell you that for me, what's worked really well, and for my clients, I know it works really well, is to figure out what part of you have you disowned that you might want to reclaim. And what role are you trying to play in your life? And is that really who you are? Because maybe it's time to expand your concept of your identity so you don't feel limited and stunted in your growth anymore. And so you can feel more fulfilled, right? We all have to grow in order to feel fulfilled. And you can't grow if you're making a part of yourself wrong and not allowing yourself to express it. So this has been one of the most powerful insights I've learned in my coaching career. I think that when it's properly explored in a capacity, you can really learn a lot about yourself and improve your life tremendously. So I'm hopeful that it's helpful to you. I hope you reflect on it sincerely. And I hope I will get to serve you at a more deeper level here shortly. So take care for now. See you.